On our second topic here tonight, we're going to talk about that all-important Catechist Formation at the beginning of the year. How do we get that program started up right? We've got to form catechists. We've got to make them feel confident. We have to help them know the programs they're using, know the ins and outs of it, and we have to try to support them with certification. So we'll be talking about all three of these things here tonight, but let's start with the first one, how to help catechists to catechize, to teach. And I want to start with a slide, as you can see on the screen, from the new directory for catechesis. And it's the paragraph that discusses Catechist Identity. And I think it's just super important to take a look at that for a second. Hopefully you can see it on your full screen. But it talks about the idea of the catechist being, maybe I can make it look like this. There we go. As the catechist being a witness of faith and a keeper of the memory of God. I just love that line, by the way. But notice that the very first bullet in describing the Catechist Identity has to do with, we want men and women who have encountered Christ and recall that encounter. That's the keeping the memory, and are a witness of that encounter. They're able to share from that memory with others, what that means to them, what it meant to encounter Christ and how it's meant to continue a relationship with him. That is first and foremost the calling card of the catechist. That's a nice alliteration. The second there is a teacher and a mystagogue. And sometimes we think about mystagogy in adult faith formation. I say sometimes, not every adult faith formation coordinator does think of mystagogy, but it's a critical piece of what is soon to be called the OCIA, but the RCIA, the Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults. That's how we deepen that experience and reflect on that experience of receiving the sacraments and just entering more fully into the life of the church. Imagine, in this regard, the catechist being a welcome mat in front of a door, being the inviter, the greeter might be a better analogy. We don't want people to be doormats, but the idea is a person of welcome, inviting people to, as they learn more about Christ, to consider remembering Christ in his church and reflecting more on having received Christ and the different ways the church offers him. So through the word, through sacraments, through prayer, through the community, and through the ministers as well. And lastly, an accompanier and an educator. Super important. Accompaniment is not going away. If you've not heard of that, or if you've heard something about it but want to know more about it, I invite you to check out Pope Francis's encyclical Evangelii Gaudium, which really kind of sets the accompaniment off a little bit, gives some initial context, and then just a variety of homilies and audiences that kind of slowly continue to expand on the theme. But what it all boils down to is, and it kind of ties in with that first bullet here, catechists and every Catholic, catechists are called to be spiritual companions, which means we're called to listen to the people we catechize. Why? Because we want to encounter them where they are. We want to kind of step into their world as much as we can, to empathize. That's an important attitude of accompaniment, and to be open-minded about what they're sharing with us, and ultimately to be a source of mercy for them, to draw them closer to the mystery of Jesus Christ. These are the three things that catechists are called to do. And we want to continue on in our discussion of catechist formation and pedagogy by saying just a bit about how God reveals himself. Again, going back to the directory, God reveals himself slowly, gradually, progressively. Those are the three words that the directory uses there. Slowly, progressively, and gradually. And part of that revelation is the content that we're teaching. And it's also your own witness of the content, which is hopefully slowly, progressively, gradually unfolding. So it is really a relationship not only with the doctrine of the church and the truth behind it and the giver of truth, it's also the evangelizer of truth, which is you. And we're so grateful for what you do as catechists. But it's not just the word of God that is the pedagogue here. Sometimes your program dictates the pedagogy. Is that right, Steve?
That is correct, but I wanted to sort of echo what you're saying, is that how many of you have ever said, I need to cover this content, this lesson, or I need to get through the content. And it's not all about the content. You as the catechist play such a vital role in what we're talking about as far as transmitting the faith. So it's your life, it's the reflection of Christ in you because of your faith in God that the children can really, really relate to and respond to, that puts context to all of the content that they're learning. So, but you put it much more eloquently than I did. You have a resource though, and I'd like to share that if I could.
Yeah, that's the actual directory for catechesis.
Right.
And then here is a little book I wrote, which is a summary of that directory. So if you don't want to read, 480 some pages, and you want to really use this as a efficient and effective tool for your catechists for formation, this summary book might be just what you need.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Deacon Matt. And this has been widely popular. Again, it's a great entryway into the full text. Summaries are a great way to sort of get in and get the big picture. And then if you want to dig more deeply, you can go into specific areas of the actual directory. All right. We're going to talk about, as you sort of began to segue, that it's not only about the content, it's not all about the catechist, it's a combination thereof. So let's shift into talking about catechetical program resources and why those are important, because those can offer a level of direction for us when we're talking about catechizing our young folks. And so we want to just make a quick mention that in your catechetical programs, there's typically a combination now of print and digital resources. And it's really important to understand what those resources are and what they offer and use them. And if you've been a catechist, if you're a veteran catechist, maybe you've been very comfortable using print. But if you're only using print for your instruction these days, then you may be missing out on key components to your catechetical program. So definitely make sure that you're making time for the prayers, because those do provide encounters with God, which help us to be more prepared to encounter other people. Use those activities and resources during your instruction because they provide a level of accompaniment that help you accompany the student in the classroom, the child. And they also offer typically opportunities for pairing off or groups where you help them accompany each other. And all catechetical programs these days offer parent type or family type resources so that we can help to accompany the parents. That's so vital to the vitality of our faith life as individuals and as families. And then likewise, the digital resources can be as powerful or more powerful because, as I mentioned in the blended learning classroom segment, that children use technology to learn every day. That's how they learn in school, and they're attracted to it. And I've said over and over, and I'll continue to say, I think technology is the primary language of the youth today. No matter what dialect they're speaking, they all know the language of technology. So it's a great thing to try to integrate those digital resources.
Yeah, it really is. You said something too about if you just use print, and you were talking about kind of accompanying people through a variety of resources and media. That's such a great point. And it made me think about, like, we're trying to help young people encounter Christ and grow to trust him and to love him, to really experience. And they're only going to do that if they experience Christ's love and his own fidelity. And I maybe think about my own relationship with my wife. How do I express, hopefully she trusts me and loves me. I mean, it's been 15 years, but at any rate, how did we create that trust and love? It wasn't doing the same thing all the time. It was doing different things together. It was being in different situations and experiences and going through them together. And if you can create different classroom experiences, different learning environments or experiences, all the better for helping young people to engage more.